The debt that sold her, hook, and suspense. The rain never stopped on Veronine. It slid down the steel walls of the mining colony, turning the streets into rivers of black water. Inside a small, dim house at the edge of the settlement, Kaylin sat, with her hands in her lap, staring at the floor. Her father's voice was low, but full of shame. "They are coming tonight," he said. The merchant clan leader himself. Her mother's eyes were red from crying. "There's nothing else we can give them. The debt is too big. The mines failed, the crops failed. Kaylin didn't need them to finish. She already knew. The clan would take her as payment." The knock on the door came like a hammer. When it opened, a tall alien in gold-trimmed armor stepped inside, his face hidden behind a silver mask. 2 guards followed, their boots leaving wet footprints on the metal floor. The masked leader spoke in a calm, smooth voice. "The debt will be cleared. The girl will come with us. She will be married to the one who bought her contract." "Married?" her father asked in disbelief. "Yes, it is legal under galactic law, and far better than the other options." The way he said it made Kaylin shiver. They didn't tell her who the husband was. They didn't ask if she agreed. They just handed her a plain white travel dress and told her to pack nothing. A small shuttle waited outside, rain dripping off its curved hull. The cold air hit her face as she climbed aboard. She didn't look back, not because she didn't care, but because she couldn't. If she saw her parents one more time, she might run. The shuttle lifted off, leaving the colony behind. Through the small window, Kaylin watched the endless rain fade into the blackness of space. Her mind raced. Would she be sold to a warlord? A merchant prince? Or worse, someone from the syndicates? The thought made her stomach turn. Hours later, the shuttle docked with a much larger ship. The docking bay was massive, lit by rows of white ceiling panels. The air smelled cleaner here, but also sharper, like metal and ozone. 2 new guards waited. They wore uniforms Kaylin had never seen before, black with silver stripes and a small blue insignia over the heart. She realized they were human. One of them glanced at her, surprised. "This her?" The shuttle guard nodded. "For the commander. Direct orders." They led her down wide corridors, past crew members who stopped to stare. Kaylin walked with her head low, feeling their eyes on her. Humans were rare on her homeworld, but here, she was the alien. Finally, they reached a door that slid open with a soft hiss. A guard stepped aside and gestured for her to go in. The room was simple but clean. A desk covered in datapads. A large window showing a starfield that seemed to go on forever. And behind the desk stood a man, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in the same black uniform as the others, but with more silver on his collar. He turned when she entered. His eyes were a deep, steady gray. He wasn't what she expected. He looked calm, controlled, not cruel. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "You're Kaylin?" She nodded, unsure if she should speak. "I'm Commander Ethan." "Voss," he said. His voice was firm but not unkind. "I want to make something clear before we begin. No one here will harm you." Kaylin blinked, unsure if she believed him. "Why? Why did you take me?" she asked softly. Ethan's expression didn't change, but his answer was unexpected. "Because if I didn't, someone far worse would have." Her heart pounded. The words made her feel both safer and more afraid. He gestured toward a chair. "Sit, rest. You've had a long journey. We'll talk later." Kaylin hesitated, but sat. From the corner of her eye, she watched him return to his desk, his focus shifting to a star map glowing with red and blue markings. There was something in his posture, the weight of responsibility, the readiness for battle. She realized this man was not just a husband in name. He was a commander, a soldier, and whatever mission he was on, it was dangerous. Outside the window, stars drifted past as the ship cut through space. Kaylin thought of her family, her home, the rain on the steel roofs. Her old life was gone, and sitting across from this quiet, unreadable human, she had no idea what her new life would become. But one thing was certain: nothing about this marriage was going to be simple. The reluctant bride, the hum of the starship, was the first thing Kaylin noticed when she woke. It was a soft, steady sound, like the heartbeat of something alive. The bed beneath her was comfortable, too comfortable for someone who had been taken from her home less than a day ago. For a moment, she almost forgot where she was. Then the memory of the rain, the masked merchant, and the human commander came rushing back. She sat up and looked around. The room was small but clean, with smooth metallic walls and a single wide window showing the endless black of space. A folded set of clothes lay on the chair, simple, gray, and clearly human-made. Her plain white travel dress from the night before felt heavy on her shoulders, reminding her of why she was here. She changed quickly, the fabric softer than anything she'd owned before. It was strange. For someone who had bought her, Commander Ethan Voss had not treated her like property, and that confused her. The door slid open with a quiet hiss. A young human crew member stood there, straight-backed and polite. "The commander asked me to bring you to the mess hall," he said. Kaylin hesitated. She wasn't sure she wanted to see Ethan again, but refusing was not an option. Not here, not now. She followed silently. The corridors of the ship were wide and bright, with crew members moving in an orderly flow. Most wore the same black and silver uniforms, and many glanced at her as she passed. Their expressions varied, some curious, some guarded, a few openly hostile. She could hear the whispers. Alien bride, debt payment. Why would the commander take her? The mess hall was large, filled with long tables and the scent of hot food. Ethan sat at a small table in the corner, reading from a datapad. When he saw her, he set it aside and gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit," he said simply. Kaylin sat, her hands resting in her lap. She waited for him to speak first, but he didn't. Instead, he slid a tray toward her, bread, steaming bowl of soup, and a cup of water. "Eat," he said. She picked up the bread slowly. "You don't have to feed me," she said quietly. "I know," he replied without looking up. "But you're here now, and you'll need your strength." Something about the way he said it made her stop. It wasn't a threat. It was almost concerned that, after a long silence, she asked the question that had been burning in her mind. "Why me?" Ethan finally looked at her, his gray eyes steady. "Because your people's merchant clan owed a debt to dangerous men. They were going to sell you to the syndicate. I made a legal claim under an old law to override the sale." Kaylin frowned. "So I'm still payment, just for a different buyer." His jaw tightened slightly. "If that's how you see it, I can't change your mind. But I didn't take you to own you." They finished the meal in silence. When they left the mess hall, the corridors seemed even more full of whispers. A pair of officers stopped talking as soon as they saw them pass. One muttered under his breath, "She be trouble." Kaylin heard it, and so did Ethan. He didn't react, but his stride slowed slightly, as if making sure she could keep up. Later, she wandered the observation deck alone. The deck was a wide space with a curved glass wall showing the stars in every direction. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, an ocean of light with no horizon. She didn't hear Ethan come in until he spoke. "First time seeing space like this?" Kaylin nodded. "It's endless. I can't tell where it starts or ends." "That's because it doesn't," he said. He stood beside her, hands behind his back. "Out here, with the stars reflecting. In his eyes, he looked less like a soldier and more like someone carrying a heavy weight. She glanced at him. "If you didn't take me to own me, why keep me at all?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Because letting them take you would have been worse. And because now, whether you like it or not, you're safer here than anywhere else." His words left her with more questions than answers. She wasn't sure if she believed him. But there was something in his voice, the same tone her father used to have when he spoke of protecting the family. For the first time since leaving Veronine, Kaylin felt something other than fear. She felt curiosity. Who exactly was commander? Ethan Voss? And why did he care what happened to her? Whispers on the ship, the days aboard the human starship passed quietly, but Kaylin could feel the tension building like a storm. The crew was polite enough to her face, but she often caught their sideways glances and half-hidden whispers. It was clear she didn't belong here, not in their eyes. One evening, she left her quarters to explore the ship. The corridors were dimmer at night cycle, the hum of the engine softer. She passed the mess hall and was about to continue when she heard voices from inside. 2 crew members were talking in low tones. "I'm telling you, the commander's taking a big risk." One said, "She's not just some bride. The syndicate had plans for her." The other replied, "You think he's hiding something? He pulled strings to bring her here." Kaylin leaned closer, keeping in the shadows. "I think," the first crewman continued, "this has nothing to do with marriage, and everything to do with his mission in the border sectors." Kaylin stepped back before they noticed her and walked quickly down the corridor. Their words echoed in her head. His mission. She had no idea what they meant, but it was clear Ethan was involved in something far more dangerous than she thought. Later that night, Kaylin found herself on the observation deck again. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass, their cold light reflecting off the polished floor. She thought she was alone until she heard footsteps. Ethan entered quietly, a small datapad in his hand. He moved to the far end of the deck and activated a holographic display. Blue light filled the space, forming a map of the galaxy. Red markings flashed along the edge of the human territories, zones labeled hostile. A few were marked with a symbol she didn't recognize, a black diamond surrounded by a ring. She stepped closer. "What is that symbol?" she asked. Ethan turned, surprised. "You're still awake." "I couldn't sleep," she said, looking at the map. "What are you planning?" He hesitated before answering. "That symbol marks syndicate territory, the same group your merchant clan was dealing with." Kellen's pulse quickened. "They were going to sell me to them." "Yes," Ethan said. "And now they'll come after you because they don't like losing what they think is theirs." She stared at the map, the red zones glowing ominously. "You're on a mission against them, aren't you?" Ethan gave a faint smile. "Not the friendly kind, but one touched with weariness. You have good instincts, but the less you know about my mission, the safer you are." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I can give," he said, turning the display off. "Go get some rest. We'll be entering a border sector tomorrow." Kaylin didn't argue, but as she walked back to her quarters, her mind was spinning. He was protecting her. That much was clear, but from what exactly? And why risk his mission for someone he barely knew? The next morning, the atmosphere on the ship was different. Crew members moved faster, speaking in short, clipped voices. Kaylin stepped into the mess hall and found most of the tables empty. Through the large viewing window, she could see a faint red glow ahead. A nearby nebula dot, she approached one. Of the few crew members present, "What's happening?" she asked. The woman glanced around, then lowered her voice. "We're heading into disputed space. Pirates, smugglers, syndicate agents, all of them operate out there." Kaylin felt a chill run through her. "And the commander?" The woman gave a small shrug. Whatever he's planning, it's not going to be peaceful. That night, Kaylin couldn't sleep again. She walked the corridors until she found herself outside the command deck. The doors were slightly open, and she heard Ethan's voice. Inside, escort ships will meet us after the rendezvous, he was saying. A second voice, deep, mechanical, replied, and the girl? She is the reason they'll come. Kalen's breath caught. She pressed closer, but the doors hissed shut, locking her out. She stood there for a moment, her heart pounding. They? Words were clear. She was the reason someone would come. Was Ethan using her as bait? Or was he telling the truth about protecting her? She didn't know. But she did know one thing. Whatever was coming, it would change everything. And it was coming soon. The truth in the shadows. The next day, the ship's lighting shifted to a dull red, a sign they were entering high-risk space. Kaylin could feel the change in the crew. People moved faster, voices were sharper, and every soldier she passed was armed. She stayed in her quarters for most of the morning, but the quiet made her restless. Finally, she decided she needed answers, and the only person who could give them was Ethan. She found him in the war room, standing in front of a giant tactical display. Lines of ships moved slowly across the holographic map. His jaw was set, and there was no trace of warmth in his expression. Kaylin stepped forward. I heard you last night, she said. I heard you talking about me, about how I'm the reason they'll come. Ethan turned toward her slowly. His eyes studied her, as if deciding how much truth to give. You weren't supposed to hear that. Then tell me now, she insisted. Am I just bait for your mission? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he switched off the display and leaned against the table. I told you the merchant clan was going to sell you to the syndicate. That's true. What I didn't tell you is why they wanted you. Cullen's chest tightened. Why? Ethan's voice dropped lower. Your family's land isn't just worthless rock. It's sitting on top of a rare mineral the syndicate needs for their weapons. They thought taking you would force your father to sign it over. When he refused, they planned to take you anyway. Her stomach turned. So this marriage was the only way I could pull you out legally, Ethan finished. Under old galactic law, a marriage contract overrides a debt claim, even one backed by the syndicate. It was the only loophole they couldn't fight. Yet, Kaylin sank into the nearest chair. Her whole life back on Vera 9 felt like it had been a slow walk into a trap. And now they're coming after me. Ethan nodded. They won't stop. And if they catch you, they'll use you to get what they want. That's why I kept you on this ship. Here, I can protect you. She looked up at him. But you're also using me. You know they'll follow me, and that brings them to you. His jaw tightened again. Yes, because when they come for you, I'll have the chance to hit them first. She didn't know whether to feel angry or grateful. Part of her wanted to shout at him for putting her in the middle of his war. Another part wanted to thank him for keeping her alive. Before she could decide, the war room door slid open. A communications officer rushed in, her voice urgent. Commander, we've picked up a signal. Syndicate vessel, closing fast. Estimated intercept in 15 minutes. Ethan straightened instantly. Raise shields, prepare weapons. Alert. All decks. Kaylin stood. What happens to me during the attack? You stay in the secure cabin, Ethan said firmly. No arguments, but she stepped closer. I'm not just going to hide while they try to take me. Ethan's eyes narrowed. This isn't your fight. She met his gaze without flinching. It became my fight the moment they sold me. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan gave a short nod. Fine, but you follow my orders exactly. The ship shook as the first distant blasts from the approaching vessel hit their shields. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors as the crew moved to battle stations. Kalen followed Ethan to the command deck, watching the tactical displays light up with hostile markers. The enemy ship appeared on the main screen, black and angular, with the Syndicate's diamond ring emblem glowing on its hull. "They've hailed us," the comms officer said. On screen, Ethan ordered. The image shifted to a dark room, where a tall alien with pale gray skin and cold, yellow eyes stared at them. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. "Commander Voss, you have something that belongs to us." Ethan's tone was icy. "She's not yours." The alien's lips curved slightly. "She will be. You can't keep her forever." Kalen felt a shiver run down her spine. She didn't know how this would end, but she knew one thing. Ethan was right. They wouldn't stop coming, and if they survived this, she'd never be the same again. The enemy strikes, the hum of the ship, turned into a deep vibration as the enemy closed in. Kalen gripped the railing on the command deck, her eyes fixed on the dark Syndicate ship growing larger on the screen. It moved like a predator, slow but certain, knowing its prey had nowhere to run. "Shields at maximum," Ethan ordered. "Gunners, target their engines. Navigation, keep us moving. Don't give them a clear shot." The crew moved quickly, their hands flying across controls. The air smelled faintly of ozone as the ship's weapons powered up. Kalen had never been in a battle before, but she could feel the pressure building, a cold weight in her chest. First hit came hard. A bright beam of energy slammed into their shields, shaking the deck under her feet. Lights flickered, and somewhere deep inside the ship, metal groaned in protest. "Shields holding," an officer reported, "but they're testing us." Ethan's voice was calm but sharp. "And let's show them we can bite back. Fire at will." The ship's forward cannons lit the darkness with blue streaks of plasma. One shot hit the Syndicate ship's hull, sending fragments spinning into space. Another grazed their weapons array, forcing them to pull back slightly. But the enemy wasn't slowing. Kalen could see smaller craft launching from its sides, fast, agile fighters swarming toward the human ship. "Fighters incoming," a crewman shouted. Ethan tapped a control. "All secondary gunners, focus on intercept. Don't let them near the lower decks." Kellen's pulse quickened. She knew the lower decks. That was where the crew quarters and cargo bays were, and where she had been told to hide. A sudden explosion rocked the ship, knocking Kalen sideways. She caught herself against the railing, but the impact left her ears ringing. "They've breached Section 12. An officer called. Boarding craft detected. Ethan turned to her immediately. "Kalen, go to the secure cabin." "Now?" But she shook her head. "They're coming for me, aren't they? And I can help stop them." "This isn't a debate," he said. Before he could say more, the comms unit crackled with a new voice, harsh, breathless. "Commander, they're cutting through the cargo bay doors." Ethan swore under his breath, then looked back at her. "You know their language, don't you? The merchant codes?" Kalen nodded quickly. "Yes, I learned them when my family traded with their agents." "Then you can help," he said. "Come with me." They ran through the corridors as alarms blared overhead. The ship shuddered with every hit from outside. When they reached the cargo bay, the heavy doors were already glowing red where the enemy was cutting through. Ethan pulled a small portable console from the wall and slid it toward her. "Jam their comms. If they can't talk to their fighters, they'll lose coordination." Kellen's fingers flew across the interface, entering the old merchant code patterns she remembered. At first, nothing happened. Then the console beeped, and the sound of enemy chatter turned to static. "They're blind now," she said. "Good," Ethan replied, his eyes locked on the glowing breach. "Stay behind me." With a final screech, the cargo bay doors burst open. Armored Syndicate soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Ethan fired first, forcing them to scatter. The human security team poured in from the side, and the bay erupted. Into chaos. One soldier broke through the line and charged toward Kalen. Without thinking, she grabbed a dropped shock baton from the floor and swung hard. The weapon cracked against his helmet, sending him sprawling. Ethan glanced back just long enough to see it happen. His mouth twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Within minutes, the humans pushed the Syndicate soldiers back to their breach point. Ethan gave the order, and the inner blast doors slammed shut, cutting the attackers off from the rest of the ship. The crew cheered, but it was short-lived. The comms lit up with new alerts. The main Syndicate ship was powering its weapons for another massive strike. Ethan touched Kellen's shoulder. "You did well, but this fight isn't over." Kellen's chest was still heaving, adrenaline flooding her veins. She had never fought before, never thought she could, but now she had. And she had no intention of going back to being the frightened woman in the white dress. Back on the command deck, the view outside had changed. The enemy ship was turning, not retreating, but shifting to block their path forward. The stars behind it vanished into its dark shadow. "They want a face-to-face," Ethan muttered. "Fine, we'll give them one." Kalen stood beside him, watching as the two ships lined up for the next exchange. Her fear was still there, but it had changed. Now it was joined by something new, determination. Whatever the Syndicate wanted, they weren't going to get it without a fight. And this time, she was part of that fight. The choice of freedom. The human ship drifted slowly through the quiet void. The battle was over, for now. The enemy vessel had pulled back, disappearing into the red glow of the nebula, but the damage was clear. Scorch marks streaked the hull, and some corridors still smelled of smoke. Crew members moved like shadows, patching broken systems and checking wounded soldiers. Kalen sat alone in the observation deck, her arms resting on the railing. The stars outside felt colder tonight. She replayed the fight in her mind. The breach, the chaos, the way she had swung that baton. It still didn't feel real. She heard footsteps behind her and turned. Ethan stood there. No uniform jacket, only the dark undershirt. He looked tired, lines under his eyes, his hair slightly out of place. But there was something else in his expression. Something heavy. He came to stand beside her, staring out at the stars. "You fought well today," he said. Kalen gave a faint smile. "I didn't have much choice." "That's not true," he replied. "You could have hidden. You didn't." They stood in silence for a moment before he spoke again. "Kalen, I owe you the truth. This ship will see more battles. The Syndicate won't stop. You are the reason they'll keep chasing us." She met his gaze. "I know. And because of that," Ethan continued, "I'm giving you a choice." Her heart skipped. "What kind of choice?" "I can have you escorted to a safe world, somewhere far from Syndicate space. You'd have credits, a home, a new life, free of this debt and this war." Kalen blinked. "And if I stay?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then you stay as part of my crew, not as a debt bride, not because of a contract, but because you choose to. You'd be in danger every day." She looked back at the stars. A month ago, the answer would have been simple. She would have taken freedom without thinking twice. But now, things had changed. Ethan had saved her life. The crew, even those who doubted her, had fought beside her. And for the first time, she felt like she was more than just someone's property. She was useful. She mattered. "What happens to you if I leave?" she asked quietly. Ethan shrugged slightly. "I still go after the Syndicate. I still fight. But it will be easier for them to hurt me if they know I failed to protect you." Her eyes searched his face. "You're not asking me to stay for the mission. You're asking me to stay For you. He didn't answer right away, but the look in his eyes said enough. Kellen's mind spun. The safe choice was to leave, to disappear somewhere the syndicate would never find her. But the thought of walking away from this ship, from these people, from him, it made her chest ache. Finally, she took a deep breath. I'm staying. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly, as if checking if she was certain. You understand what that means? Yes, she said. I'm not here because of a contract anymore. I'm here because I want to be. For the first time since she had met him, his expression softened. A small, rare smile appeared. Then welcome to the crew, Kalen. We'll make sure you're ready for what's coming. Later that night, she stood alone in her quarters, looking at the folded white dress she had worn when she left Vera 9. It felt like a relic from another life. She opened the storage compartment, placed it inside, and shut the door. She wasn't the frightened girl from the colony anymore. She was part of something bigger, and she wasn't turning back. On the command deck, Ethan watched the tactical displays. The syndicate ship had vanished from sensors, but he knew it was only a matter of time before they crossed paths again. This time, though, he wouldn't be protecting Kalen alone. She was ready to fight. More than a debt, the human starship entered orbit above Vera Prime, home to one of the largest neutral trade hubs in the sector. Beneath them, the planet glowed, with city lights, gold, silver, and blue spreading like veins across the surface. Inside the ship, the crew moved with quiet urgency. Today was not a battle day. Today was politics. And politics, Ethan knew, could be more dangerous than any fight. Kalen stood at the edge of the command deck, wearing a fitted black and silver uniform like the rest of the crew. It wasn't armor, but it felt like it. It made her stand taller. Ethan came to stand beside her. Once we're inside the council chamber, he said, they'll try to use you against me. They'll say I broke laws, that I stole you. She met his eyes. And I'll tell them the truth. The shuttle ride down to the surface was smooth, but the council hall was anything but welcoming. Tall alien guards flanked the massive doors, their eyes cold. Inside, the chamber was a half-circle of raised seats, each holding a representative from a different world. And at the far end, seated like a predator on a throne, was a syndicate envoy. The envoy's skin was pale gray, his yellow eyes scanning Kalen with a mix of greed and mockery. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried through the hall. There she is, the stolen bride. Commander Voss, you took her from her rightful owners. Kalen stepped forward before Ethan could speak. I am not property, she said. Clearly, her voice echoed in the silent chamber. I was sold to pay a debt I never owed. And Commander Voss saved me from being a prisoner. The envoy's lips curled into a cold smile. You speak boldly for someone who hides behind a human warship. Perhaps you forget. Your family signed the contract. Kellen's hands tightened. At her sides, yes, a contract signed under threat. Under law, that's not binding. The envoy's smile faded. Ethan stepped forward then, his voice like steel. You wanted her because her family's land sits on rare mineral deposits. This was never about a debt. It was about power. And the syndicate has no claim here. A low murmur rippled through the council. Some representatives leaned forward, interested. Others watched the envoy with suspicion. The syndicate envoy's eyes narrowed. You're playing a dangerous game, Commander. So are you, Ethan replied. But the difference is, I'm not afraid to play it in the open. The council leader, a tall reptilian being with scales that shimmered blue, raised a hand for silence. This chamber will review the evidence. Until then, the girl is under human protection. It wasn't a full victory, but it was enough. The envoy's glare followed them as they left, but he did not speak again. Back aboard the ship, Kaylin let out a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. That could have gone worse, she said. Ethan gave a small nod. You did well. You spoke for yourself. That matters. Kaylin smiled faintly. I didn't just speak for myself. I spoke for you too. As the ship left orbit, the stars returned to fill the windows. Kaylin stood at the observation deck, watching them drift by. Ethan joined her, hands resting behind his back. You know, she said, when this started, I thought I was just a debt, something to be paid off and forgotten. You're more than that now, Ethan said quietly. You're part of this crew. And whether you like it or not, you're part of this fight. She turned to look at him. I like it. Somewhere in the dark between the stars, the syndicate was still out there. The danger hadn't ended. But Kaylin was no longer the frightened girl in the white dress. She was ready for whatever came next out, and this time she wasn't standing behind anyone. She was standing beside them.